Hello, everybody. This is Mark Kumar, your lifestyle entrepreneur and proud founder of Simple Podcast Cloud, a platform for podcasters to host your audio. And today's podcast is going to be amazing, amazing podcaster. He's going to be sharing with you some amazing things that is going to revolutionize the way you do podcasting and share some tips and secrets that will help you take your podcast to the next level. So without any further ado, please take your time to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself.
My name is William Walley. That build-up got me a little nervous at this point. I've really got to bring my A game now. Like I said, my name is William Walley. I've been podcasting for a grand total. Next Friday will be 7 months. I'm sitting, I think I checked my numbers this morning. I was sitting at about 4,500 downloads. I'm in about, what shocks me is with little to no actual build-up. Like I thought about it for quite a while about doing one. Didn't do a lot of build up for it. Just told a few friends and family. And then the next week, I just started it with no hoopla. And like I said, 7 months later, I'm at about 4,500 downloads. I've got listenership including the U.S. in 20 countries and in 33 states here in the U.S. So I'm beyond shocked and I'm beyond blessed. So
hey man, I just want to first of all congratulate you on that one and a big woohoo for you. That's exciting. So first of all, what is your podcast about?
All right. First of all, the title of my podcast is World of Walley. It started off as in a concept in my head of because I had such a diverse background, different vocational endeavors that I had done. And people were always asking me about jobs that I actually, did, stuff I did on my jobs. I said, it'd be cool to be able to put that down, record it for history, I guess is what you could call it. And the funny thing is I'm 7 months in and I've only had a chance to share probably just a couple of my actual like crazy stories from some of the different work endeavors I've had. It's turned into a lot more of like interview style. I mean, I'm in my second season now. And I like 95% of my stuff is interview based. Now I'm a pretty relaxed interview guy. I mean, I'm not a Q&A kind of guy. I don't pop a question and wait on them to answer me. My philosophy has always been, if somebody goes to the trouble of taking time out of their busy schedule to talk to me, podunk country boy from Columbia, Mississippi, the least I can do is give them as much time of my show as they need. And that's been a pretty successful formula to this point. So,
oh man, that is awesome. I would love to hear one of your interesting stories if you could share it. That would be awesome.
Like I said, I've had so many people ask me. I've been really fortunate. Most of the jobs I've had, you would consider interesting, or some people would consider interesting. For example, off and on all together, I worked about 14 years in the corrections industry. So I've seen a lot of, when they say stuff about war stories, when the old line used to be when we'd go to work, the only difference between us and the inmates was we got to go home every night or we got to go home every day, depending on what your shift was. I had a lot of folks ask me about that, and I wanted to share those kind of stories. I've also worked in what's called event security and management. If you've ever gone to any type of sporting event or any type of venue-based event, that is who event security. They're called a lot of things, guest services, stuff like that. But I got an opportunity to work here in the southeastern region. Now in New York, you don't understand how important stuff like college football is. Like I said, you're from New York. You have to root for teams like Rutgers and the Ivy League and Penn State maybe. Penn State's kind of decent up there. But in the SEC, Southeastern Conference, it is life. And that's why this pandemic's kind of got us all, shaken because we don't get any sports down here. But I worked with a company called Event Operations Group for about 6.5 years, and that's what I did. I worked at pretty much every major venue in the Southeast. We had contracts in the state of Mississippi, the state of Alabama, the state of Florida, in Georgia and Tennessee, places like that. So I got a chance to walk into what good old Southern boys like me would call the meccas of college football. I was the University of Alabama, Mississippi State University, what we call Ole Miss, University of Mississippi, which is referred to as Ole Miss down here. We had a contract at Georgia State. At Georgia Tech. I got a chance to go to the McCarran Center and work events there. And, Georgia Tech basketball is a big deal. So it's just crazy. And concerts and festivals, if you're a music person, people used to tell me all the time, man, you got the greatest job in the world. Because I got to go to a lot of concerts and festivals and stuff, didn't pay anything. I actually got paid to be there. And it was just wild. I don't know, you being in New York, you might not even know about one of the biggest festivals in this area is based out of a place called Gulf Shores, Alabama, and it was called the Hangout Festival. Well, we were the very first company. When it first originated, we were the very first company to provide security for them. And I saw really young people, college age lunatics, use a lot of stuff they shouldn't have, a lot of illegal substances, and they paid for it in the end. I got a chance to see a guy try to ride a 20-foot tall pink pony, ceramic statue. We had a guy that was almost swept up in what they call the sweeper, which is a machine they use on the beach after stuff like this to clean the beach, to get all the, debris up. He had passed out and was almost, engulfed by it. We stopped it we saw the guy, stopped it just in time. We had a guy that was strung out on some type of illegal narcotics, and he actually was trying to swim home, is what he said, but he was on dry ground. He was actually on asphalt. So, that's that, and that became kind of commonplace. That's the kind of stuff I ran into. Down here in the deep South, NASCAR is a huge thing. Now, I'm not a huge NASCAR fan, but I worked quite a few events. Talladega Super Speedway is, that's the southern mecca of the actual NASCAR. And I got a chance to work quite a few events there. Got to see a lot of crazy, insane things there also. And then, of course, in the corrections industry, I saw stuff I'll never be able to forget. I still sometimes have nightmares about some of the stuff I saw in the corrections industry. So, just the depravity of humankind, when a human being is locked away for a certain period of time, they either gravitate to it and they become part of it, or they just break down. It's like a car after so many years, it just starts breaking down. And I just saw, their mental capacity would be diminished. A lot of them that were being incarcerated needed to be on some form of medication before they came in, and then they were, diagnosed after the fact. It's just crazy stuff. I've witnessed stuff like, I'll give you a prime example of just a common occurrence that we would see. We had a guy that was trying to prove that he was insane. He was going to trial on a rape charge of a very small child, and he had been told by another inmate, his cellmate, his cellies, as they refer to him, as kind of, what could we do, and what can I do to make myself either look better or look worse, because you would really want to look good in front of the judge, you really want to look bad. So, and this guy suggested to him that he actually store up his feces and then either use it against the guards, which I've had plenty of feces and urine and stuff thrown at me in the past. I've had actual serving trays, plastic serving trays, lit on fire and thrown at me. Just insane stuff. But this particular guy, to prove he was insane, or he was trying to prove he was insane, he would actually take the bread that was provided in some of the meals, and he took his feces and put it inside the bread and ate it like a sandwich, like you would a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. So, and he did it on multiple occasions in an effort to try to prove just, yes, that's the kind of reaction. I see your reaction. That's the kind of reaction I get a lot of times when I tell a story like that. So, that's just something that they do. They're really bad about self-mutilating themselves when they're trying to get something accomplished, or they're trying to get their way, or they want to get moved from one area of a correctional area, like a penitentiary or even a local jail. They try to get moved, so they do stupid stuff. They cut themselves. They purposely get into fights. It's just crazy. I had a guy one night. that was a previous offender. He had been convicted by the state of Mississippi, and he couldn't be housed in certain areas because of his status. So we put him in a segregated lockdown area by himself. He wanted to be in with his, his homeboys. He wanted to be in with his guys. And I had explained to him, look, man, because I was a shift sergeant at that time over that group. I said, look, man, I said, give me 20 minutes. Let me get on the phone with the sheriff. And if the sheriff signs off on it, I'll move you. Well, about 10 minutes later, he's banging on the window, between the two buildings. And he sticks his arm up to the window, and there's blood. Like I can see, he's got blood smeared all over the window. So we go in, we take care of the situation. I had I'll never forget this. I had a brand new officer. I mean, his very first night to work corrections in his life. And he was kind of shadowing me. I didn't want to put him in a situation that, he could get injured or hurt or manipulated in any way. So he's shadowing me. We go down. I grab the keys to the actual, because in this, you actually had to have a physical key to unlock these cells. So I get the key. I go down and unlock the cell. The officer standing just to my right. I swing the door open, and sitting in the doorway, I mean, literally in the doorway, in the threshold of the door, on a milk crate that had been left in there, which shouldn't have been, but something else shouldn't have been in there, but it was in there. He's sitting on a milk crate like he's sitting out in front of the country store, and blood streaming down his arm like it's running off his fingertips. And he rotates his arm to show me that he had cut himself on the inner part of his arm. And when I say he cut himself, he took they get what's called an intake bag that has certain things, razors and towels and soap and stuff like that when they first are brought in. Well, instead of them searching the bag properly, because he was a previous cutter, he'd done it before. Okay. That razor that we gave him should have been taken out of it, a little disposable razor like you find at any dollar store. He had broken the blade out of it, and he took the blade and he started at the fold of his elbow on the inner part of his arm. And he cut almost a perfect straight line all the way to where his wrist actually rotates. And he cut it deep enough that the only way I can explain it is he cut it deep enough. He cut through enough of the layers of his outer, the outer skin that if you ever see bacon that's been sitting out on the counter for a while, it kind of takes that curl up effect. Well, that's what his skin had done. He cut it deep enough that it had curled up, like curled outward. And you could literally, like I could see like his veins crossing. Like if he would have cut just a little bit deeper, I'd have been calling the morgue instead of an ambulance, because he'd have bled to death before. So we call, I tell the officer standing beside me, officer, and I'm not going to call his name to protect the innocent. I said, call, the tower, which is the main control area, call the tower and tell them, get an ambulance out here ASAP. Well, he doesn't move. He doesn't flinch. I looked to my right. I said, officer, whoever. I said, who? I said, call it. Well, he finally is able to get his radio to his mouth, and he calls it. But because of the area of the building, sometimes it blocks the signal. So he stepped out into the hallway to call it again. And he got about halfway through it, and I heard him stop. And I looked down the hall, and he's wobbling like he's back in my day, I'm 50 years old. Back in my day, it was called the Weeble Wobbles. You've seen the little toys from Fisher Price. He was Weeble wobbling, and the next thing I know, he goes down, like he passes out in the hallway. So I close the door. I tell the inmate I'm coming back. I close the door, lock it up. I go out to check on him. Of course, he's green. I mean, he looks like he's been at sea for a week, and he's seasick. I get him. I sit him up. He's trying to get air. He's about to fall out on me again. You'll pass out again. So I'm dealing with two medical situations here. I got an officer that I'm not sure what his medical history is. I got an inmate that has tried to literally cut his arm off. So I call another officer, the guy that was directly under me, which is called the OIC, which is officer in charge. He's kind of the shift number 2. He comes across from the other side because he was dealing with a situation on our county side, which is the jail part. He comes across, he helps me get the other officer up in a seated position on the bench. We're getting him air. We're getting him water. He says, I think I'm okay, boss. I think I'm okay. So he stands back up to call on the radio again, and he actually gets it called out this time. And then he goes down again, like he falls to his knees and falls off on his side, and we stand him back up. We sit him back down. So we finally get an ambulance. No, the ambulance is going to be delayed for a few minutes. So then I had to call, something like that happens. I had to call everybody. I had to call the chief of security. I had to call the warden. I had to call the deputy warden. I had to call everybody on the building. Everybody but the president of the United States felt like I had to call that night. So they authorized the OIC, my number 2, to load him up in one of our vans and actually take him to the hospital, the local hospital. So he takes off with him. And about 15, 20 minutes later, my officer calls me, gives me an update, tells me, look, they're going to stitch him up. They gave him some numbing medication. They're going to stitch him up. About 20 minutes later, it might not have been 20 minutes. It might have been 15 minutes later. I get another call, same officer. I said, what's going on, man? He goes, look, the medication's wearing off. The doctor wants to know, do you need to give him more? He's got three or four more stitches he's got to drop in his arm. And the problem was it was getting down near the wrist part, which would be, a pretty tender area. I said, look, man, I said, I'm not authorizing another dollar on this guy. I said, we're already, so many dollars, so many, it's like, I want to say the bill is like $5,000 to get this guy fixed. I said, I'm not authorizing it. And I know the deputy warden or the warden's not going to authorize it either. He said, okay, well, I said, stitch him up. I said, leave me on the phone though, because I want to hear this. And I could tell every time the doctor drug a stitch through his arm because he was screaming like a child. So we finally get him back to the facility. And, ironically, I don't hear another peep out of him the rest of the night. He's just so glad to be back to the prison where he can lay down. So I did actually move him to the other area, even though he did what he did. And I had told him, I said, look, me and you both could have saved a lot of time and trouble tonight if you'd have just given me 15 minutes to solve your problem. So that's, I'm not going to say that happened every night I went to work or every day I went to work. But I mean, there's been quite a few times that I've come home and had to throw the shirt away because my wife couldn't wash the blood out of it. So, I mean, that's just a typical correction story. And I was so amazed when I got the opportunity. I was trying to get out of corrections, and like I said, I don't know, like your background. I don't know about your faith or religion or anything like this, but I had been praying for months to get out of corrections. Lord, just anything. I'll do anything. And I had an opportunity. I'd been doing a little part-time work in this event security I was talking about. And the big boss, the main man of the company, actually showed up in an event that we were working. And he saw my work ethic and he saw how I was able to handle myself in conflict. And he said, you know what? He said, I got a spot for you. He said, if you can give me 1 month, he said, I got a spot I want to put you in. And I ended up going to work for him. I started off as a part-time associate. I went from part-time associate to a assistant regional manager, part-time assistant regional manager, to the regional manager, still a part-time capacity because it was a part-time contract, to a full-time regional manager, to a full-time regional director with this company within about 7 months. So I really was afforded a lot of opportunities, especially in that field. And I got a chance to go to a lot of places. We worked rock shows on cruises. We worked, NASCAR races. We worked college football, college basketball, festivals, and just all kind of crazy stuff. Like I said, I got too many stories. If I got started on that, we'd have to do like a 5-hour mini series because I got so many stories on that I'd actually have to bring some of my buddies in and let them actually give their actual account, what they can remember of it, because some of my buddies that I work with that company were usually in no condition to be doing what they needed to be doing when they got into trouble that they got into. But like I said, I'm going to protect the innocent by not calling any names on that. But the one thing that I really enjoyed about that job, and like I said, 6.5 years, it was extremely taxing physically and mentally, and I was never at home. Like I was always on the road. That's what got to me. That's why I eventually had to step away, because I was missing time with my wife. I was missing time watching my kids growing up. Like when I started with them, my son was in the 6th grade, and when I left them and took another job, he was 3 months away from graduating high school. So, I mean, I missed a large chunk of my kids growing up. And now I'll never regret taking that job, because I learned so much and I was able to do a lot of things, able to meet a amazing amount of people. And that's the funny thing is I guess when my podcast started, that's was kind of the inspiration of my podcast, because I had met so many people, and I thought, man, I would love to share these stories. And if I got really fortunate, maybe I could get back in contact with some of these folks and actually, maybe get them on the show, which would be really amazing. I'm not at the Mark Kumar level. I'm trying to get there. I'm not the Joe right now. I did say this the other day. A guy asked me, he said, man, what do you like? What inspires you to do a podcast? I said, well, I'm a big Joe Rogan guy. And I was listening to Joe Rogan back before podcast was even a term. Like, podcast is a pretty relatively new term. They were doing it. We just didn't call it that. And my goal is to kind of I'd love to reach Joe Rogan's level. I don't think I ever will, but I'd love to. And I try to be a lot cleaner version of Joe Rogan. And no disrespect to him, Joe Rogan is an amazing interviewer, and I love his show content. But I try to just a portion of that. If I could just achieve a 30 or 40 percentile of that, and just be a little cleaner in my presentation. I have guests that have refused to come on my show because, I asked them not to be profane. Because I don't know, I think it was in the bio information I sent you. I'm trying to present a content and a product that the common man and common woman can sit down, even with their children, and listen to, and not be offended by it. And listen, in this society, it's hard not to say something or do something to offend somebody. So, but I mean, like I said, you probably know that better than I do, because like I said, I'm not on your level yet. You're
Man, only thing I could tell you right about now, I don't care what level you currently are, the way you tell stories, I feel like I'm right next to you. I swear.
I told somebody I've always, coming up through school, I wasn't a real big fan of school. I'm not going to say I didn't like school. Right. I liked being able to go to school, because if I was at school, then I didn't have, my mom and dad didn't have stuff at home for me to do. Like I could avoid, chores and stuff, because I'm old enough, we used to do chores. But I used to love to read a lot. And I guess I've just read so much stuff and seen so many presentations. I don't consider myself a really good orator. I don't consider myself a really good storyteller. I mean, I can tell stories, but if I listen to I would not find myself as compelling a storyteller if I was listening to myself, I guess is the best way to explain that. Now, I've had people tell me, man, I could just sit and listen to you tell these stories all day long. And then, of course, I also get, and we joked about this before we got started, because I asked you were from New York, and you said, is it that evident with the accent? A lot of my reviews, like especially on Apple, people will review my stuff and go, man, I love that freaking accent you got, man. I'm like, well, I don't know. I mean, they said, some guy asked me one time on my Facebook page, he sent me a message. He said, man, how'd you work on that accent so good? I said, dude, I've been working on this accent my whole life. So, I came out of the womb talking like this. I hadn't changed it at all. So,
yeah, that's pretty cool, man. Like I said, I don't know what I can say other than the way you tell your story and the way you articulate it step by step, and also in a vivid picture format. I felt like the present story you were just telling, I felt like I was right there with you. I know exactly.
The scary thing is, and that's been quite a few years removed now. And I'll still, like I talked about, I wanted out of corrections so bad because I saw stuff in corrections that it's like, I'll never compare working in the corrections industry to going to war, because I have the utmost respect for the soldiers and the military. And I know they see a lot of stuff that's a lot worse than I'll ever see.
Yep.
But I still see that stuff. Like I'll just a random whatever, I actually was walking through a mall here, I guess back before the pandemic, just before it started, or it kind of kicked into full effect. And I just smelled like I caught a whiff of something, a scent. And it took me back like 18 years to an instant I had, where a guy, took a scouring brick like you clean a grill with and threw it at the ceiling and actually broke off the receptacle where the actual sprinkler system works. And that chlorine, there was so much chlorine being forced out in that water that smell was so intense. And then, of course, there was two guys in there we were keeping in there separated while we were interviewing them, because we were doing it was part of like a gang reassignment type deal. You can't have certain affiliations can't be housed together because they will literally kill each other. And we were trying to separate them to get some questioning done, and the guy was throwing a fit and he busted it. So I had one of the trustees, which is one of the, the trusted inmates, and that's a loaded word there, trusted inmates. You should never trust any inmate, no matter how long they've been there. I had them go to the laundry and take towels and shove them under the doors so it wouldn't leak into the hallway. Well, then when the water got up about between knee deep and waist deep, this guy suddenly was like, "Hey, man, just shut it off, man. I'm sorry. No, let's let it." So I let it get almost to waist deep before we actually went and killed the system. The amazing thing is it only took to go from the floor level to waist deep only took about 7 minutes. So I was amazed at the amount of water that system put out in 7 minutes time. So, but, and it was just that I just caught a whiff of it, and it took me back like, 17, 18 years to that instant. I thought about it just like a flashback. So, I don't know, man.
Yeah, man.
I will say this: when I got out of it and I moved on to do other things, like I said, when I was doing event security, I got a chance to, I'm a huge Green Bay Packer fan. Okay. Well, while I work for them, while I work for them, I got the opportunity to meet Aaron Rodgers. I got an opportunity to meet Bart Starr. I got an opportunity to meet, I got a chance to meet every living Green Bay quarterback. The only one I did not get a chance to meet was Lynn Dickey, which is from back like 75 to 80, somewhere in that range. And like I said, I got a chance to sit with Bart Starr and talk to him about playing in the very first 2 Super Bowls. How crazy is that? I remember spending, and there's a venue in Orange Beach, Alabama called The Wharf, and it's pretty interesting. It's about a 5,000 seat open air amphitheater. It's huge in this area from a concert standpoint. And we were working a show, and it was some retro acts, and it was the group actually was the group ZZ Top. Now, I don't know how old you are. You probably do know who ZZ Top is, though. You're familiar with the name. You do not? I do not. ZZ Top was a 3-man band from the little state of Texas that was immensely popular in the 70s and up through the middle 80s. They were huge, and they're still still well recognized. They're just not as And Billy Gibbons, is one of the greatest rock guitarists that has ever lived. And I got a chance to sit one night after an event with him because I was actually over that back area of the backstage area. And while everything was being broken down and all that, we had to stay to make sure nothing was taken or anything. I got a chance to sit, that evening in just a couple of lounge chairs out by his little camper thing he was in. And we just chatted about the world, about, he's asking me 1,000 questions about me. And I'm like, finally, I stopped him. I said, "Sir," I said, first of all, do you realize who you are? You are Billy Gibbons. You're one of the greatest rock guitarists that's ever lived. He goes, "Yeah." He said, "I wake up every morning as Billy Gibbons, though." He said, I'm not really interested in me. I know all about me. He said, tell me more about you, though. And I'm like, that's the kind of stuff. It's just crazy stories. I'm like, Billy Gibbons wants to know about me. I had Aaron Rodgers that had come to the University of Mississippi, Ole Miss, for just a random trip because his brother was playing in a football game there. And of course, he tried to sit with I call them the normal people. He tried to sit with normal fans. You're Aaron Rodgers. You can't sit in the stands with people. They're going to harass you. So we pulled him and his girlfriend at that time, which was not Danica Patrick, but it was another little supermodel of some kind. I don't remember. And his parents were there. We pulled all of them out of the bleachers, brought them to my office where they could, so they wouldn't get mobbed when the game was over. I actually brought him down to field level so he could watch the last couple of drives that his brother had, which he was, very thankful for that. But we just, after the event started breaking down, I'm in the office with them, making sure nobody's bothering them. And my guys are out there finishing everything up, the paperwork and everything. And he and I are just talking like we've known each other forever. And what was so crazy about it is an hour and a half, he probably spent an hour and a half in my office. When we finally got them out and got them to their vehicles and got them on their way, it hit me. I'm like, I just spent like an hour and a half with Aaron Rodgers, and that guy was talking to me like we'd known each other forever. Like he was genuinely curious about, stuff we had going on. Like he went on his radio show the following Tuesday and thanked, my company for the way they handled the situation, called myself, and then my supervisor happened to be there, called myself and her by name on his radio show. And, that's just moments you can't, I couldn't have ever, when I was 15 years old, I could never have imagined, something like that happening. So, so I joke all the time, that I'm, they say, man, you're almost famous. No, I'm not almost famous. I'm very fortunate. So, that's just how it is.
What is your damn secret to being famous? That's what I want to know.
I don't know. I just don't know. I will say this. I think the biggest thing that ever happened when I was in high school, when I was in middle school and high school, I was not a popular kid. I was not in all the different school organizations. I didn't run for anything. I played sports because, every guy in the South, every guy in the South used to play some type of sports. So I was a football and baseball guy. So, I had my buddies on the football field or the baseball field, but I never was, one of the guys. And then the start of my 10th grade year, I was at a private school here locally. And I just made the decision that I'm leaving this private school. I'm going to public school. I'm going to start over. And I did. I'll never forget my mom. It seems like she cried for 3 weeks when I told her I was changing schools because they had put so much time and effort into me going to school at this private school, which for, middle class, parents, it was expensive. They were having to work hard to send me and my brother there. And I tried to be smart about it. I said, look at all the money I'm going to save you. And that didn't work either. She still cried. Now, my dad was pretty excited about not having to send them all that money every month. So I ended up going to public school. I started my 10th grade year at private school, but then about 6 weeks in, I changed to the public school. And I'll be honest with you, till Christmas of that 10th grade year, it was not, I was second guessing my decision. And then I started making a few friends, and they could look past. We were talking about this. I was talking about this earlier about offending folks in the society we live in. Look, even back then, and this was in the 80s. Because I graduated in 1987. Even in the 80s, man, a private school kid was looked down upon by public school kids, and vice versa. Because private school kids thought public school kids were just a bunch of punks that, hillbillies or whatever. And then, of course, when a private school kid showed up at the public school, I caught flack. I had people that had issues with me because I came from private school. I had people that had issues with me because I was a white guy. I had people that, came up to me because they didn't like the clothes I wore. I mean, all kind of just insane stuff. And that used to blow my mind. And now I look at the society we live in now, and a lot less than that offends a lot more people now. So I don't know, but then, like I said, about Christmas, I started making some friends just before we went to Christmas break. And then after Christmas, it kind of changed. I started being invited to some parties and stuff, and, going to some places I probably shouldn't have gone to, but I was sowing the wild oats, as they call it down here where I'm from. And I did a lot of stuff my 10th and 11th grade year that now I'm pretty ashamed of, but it got me into that clique, or at least it got me where I thought I wanted to be. And then I look back on that and I go, man, I was an idiot. But it got me I was in that popular group for a short period of time. And the one thing it did do, it built my confidence level, because listen, man, if my 15-year-old self was sitting here right now, me and you wouldn't be talking. There's no way I'd be on here talking to you about anything, because I had zero self-confidence. But I went to the public school. I changed everything about me. I changed my image. I got the braces and fixed the teeth. I changed the hairstyle, changed the clothes, changed the kicks. I mean, I rolled up in there day one with the original Air Jordans. I thought I was the bomb. Yeah, the original Air Jordans. I'm talking about them ugly black, white, and red ones. The ugliest shoe ever made, and I thought I was a pimp wearing them things. So that's what kind of kick-started it. And then when I got to college, my confidence just increased and increased and increased. And then I learned something. You should never meet a stranger. Like me and you, if we wasn't for this right here, you and I would have never met. But you opened up something on Facebook, I've responded to it, and now we're sitting here talking to each other. That's kind of that's my concept for life at this point, So on my podcast, I'm the same way. I don't care how my faith or my ideology or my way of life is. I am open to sit and have a civil conversation with anybody that comes on my show, and I will let them state their opinions, and I will let them get their viewpoint across if they will do it in the same amount of respect I extend them. And they also, if they come on my show, and especially when it gets to like a political issue, look, I don't have an issue with you talking politics on my show. I've done it myself, but I also have facts to back it up. I never say anything that I have not fact checked myself. And if they'll do that, man, I'm all for it. I love a beautiful, healthy debate. And like I said, and every now and then I'll mix a story in there, something crazy, like a dude trying to slice his arm off or something. You know what I'm saying? Just saying, every now and then, a little bit of levity.
Every now and then, I'll just throw a story in there, cutting somebody, whatever, it's fine.
Well, I mean, that story's funny now. It was pretty, it was pretty impressive back then, because it's like this dude literally tried to cut his arm off. So, but now it's funny. I mean, the funny thing is, I know the guy. I actually knew the guy until he got kicked out of school. He and I were actually in school together, and we've known each other for years, and we still run into each other on the street, because I live in a small community, and I run into him every now and then, and he still shows me the scar, and we laugh about it. So, hey, if you can take 36 stitches in your arm trying to get moved from one cell to another, you got my utmost respect. I'm just telling you. So,
yeah, definitely. What is really interesting about that story, I find, is that fact that us as human beings, we can push ourselves to a limit never in the wildest dream that someone else can imagine. But push comes to shove, we are born for this, we are ready for this, and we are willing to do it. That's what I got out of that story. It's like, wow.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's the entire society, but I have noticed after you cage an individual up for a while, their level of want to usually increases to the point of insanity, because they will do anything to get what they want. Right. Like I said, I mean, I watched a guy actually dislocate his shoulder against a wall in a actual housing unit, just to get moved out to the infirmary because he had been told that, you're not waking up in the morning, that kind of stuff. So this dude tried to break his own shoulder just to get out of the housing zone.
Wow.
I mean, we caught it on video, like him slamming his shoulder into the wall.
Wow.
So,
that's incredible.
Well, I mean, hey, if I say, hey, Mark, you ain't gonna make it to daylight, you might do something just that crazy.
I might, or depending on the person, the person is, right. So I might be like, if I love myself so much, but like I want to save my life, and that's one mindset, right? Another one would be like, I'm done with my life, whatever. Depending on the individual mentality wise, I would think. Like some people in it, especially like. Go ahead. Can I just say one more thing? Just like depending on the, you could be in a prison and then that concept is fine. And then people in here, they go to 9-to-5 job doing the same damn thing. It's almost similar. If you think about it, it's almost similar.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. Getting hung up in that, job. Hey, look, right now, because I'm not Joe Rogan, I'm still working I'm working a 40-hour week job. Right. And it's a job. It's just over broke. And I'm telling you, man, you get fed up with it. Or you get in a situation like I've had some jobs, some employments that I've made, for this area, I've made substantially, more money than a lot that folks that live around here. But you get just as miserable because usually those jobs push you so far physically and mentally and psychologically that you just can't take it anymore. Yep. But I mean, that's just how it is. That's why I try to wake up every morning and just be thankful that the good Lord blessed me enough to wake me up. Because, one morning I won't wake up, and I know that.
It's for a friend of mine a long time ago told this to me, but I didn't realize until now. And every time I would look at him, he would always have a smile and a really positive attitude. And his name was like Emery Grimm. And I would always ask him, like, why are you so excited and it's always pleasant and always like happy? And he goes, well, every day above ground is a good day. I was like, wow.
Yep. Every day north of the dirt. That's what we call it, north of the dirt. Every day north of the dirt's a good day. You'd be having the worst day in the world, but I tell you what, if you were dead tomorrow, you'd wish you had yesterday back. So
absolutely, totally. Yep. So like that, literally, like you're saying, when you were smelling something and take you back to that memory. Yep. When you say something, take me back to that particular memory. Is like, wow, every day above ground.
Every day, man. I tell you, that's why I enjoy podcasting, because I get an opportunity not only to take my listeners, to a place that a lot of them, for example, I've been fortunate enough to interview a few Hollywood types. I know a lot of folks that listen to my podcast personally that would never have an opportunity to actually go to Hollywood and meet these folks, or go to California and meet these folks. So that's why I try to bring that experience to them. That's what I tell them. I try to bring my listeners in, from their everyday lives into the world of Walley. That's where World of Walley all came from. So right. That, and I got a bunch of useless knowledge in my head. That's what my wife says. So.
Oh, tell her she's wrong. She's not.
I don't know. I got a pile, as the country folks say, I got a pile of useless knowledge just floating around up there. Yeah, I had a friend of mine one time tell me, he said, dude, I would hate to walk around in your head. I said, why is that? He said, man, it would be scary. I said, it probably would be.
So, man, if I learn nothing from you, and people who are listening to you, if they learn nothing from you, they learn at least one thing, and that is definitely how to tell a story. More podcasters, they get stuck on, I need the equipment, I need the software, I need the blah, 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 blah. None of that crap matter if you don't have content. And for you, you have the greatest content ever. You got me tuned in. I'm on list holding on to every single word you're saying. And it's like you're painting the picture. If you could, a person, a business owner, entrepreneur, a podcaster, or videographer, or whoever that person is, if they can learn how to tell a story like you do, oh my God, they will revolutionize their podcast experiencing.
Like I said, I
know you don't realize it because
I'm going to have to give the good Lord all the credit, because I'm telling you, I don't know. I just I've always kind of been able to do this. And like I said, I wasn't the most popular kid back in the day. I'd catch myself, I'd sit and I'd write a lot of stuff. Like I'd write little short stories. And I remember that in 1992, near the end of 92, like October 1992, I surrendered to youth ministry. And that very first Christmas, I felt a lot of pressure to, because around Christmas time in a church setting, they like to see like Christmas plays and stuff. So I'm scouring the internet trying to find, the perfect Christmas presentation. And I just can't find it. And everything seemed dated and stale. So I was always a big fan of West Side Story, both the movie, the play, everything. And so I took that West Side Story concept, and I took the actual story of Jesus and his disciples and his last days here on earth, and I actually kind of melded the two stories together. And I actually sat, and in one sitting, in 2 hours and 15 minutes, I actually wrote a 5-act play that the youth, I actually had to recruit some youth from another church to help, but I actually, in that short period of time, was able to write completely, parts, lined out, everything, that story. And to this day, I still have a copy of it somewhere, stored on some type of digital media. So it's somewhere, I just don't know where it's at. But I did that the first 2 or 3 Christmases that I was in youth ministry, because I was always trying to infuse the real world that young people are involved in with Scripture, because they look at Scripture and say it's just too stale. It seems old and dated. And I want to show them, just because you live in the world doesn't mean you have to live of the world. So that's why I try to meld the two worlds together. And I guess that's where it all started. I mean, I guess that's where my storytelling actually began, because I've always enjoyed doing that type of stuff. So, like I said, I just keep plugging away, man. Like I said, this whole World of Walley podcast started off as me just going to share some crazy stories that I had in the cleanest way possible. Because trust me, some of the stories I could tell it, I could Joe Rogan them up pretty good. I mean, it'd be pretty rough. I'd have to put like mature audience advisories on some of the stories if I didn't clean them up a little bit. Right. But and then, like I said, I'm well, matter of fact, Tuesday, I've had an episode dropping this Tuesday, and it's my 50th episode. So, I mean, I'm 50 episodes in, and I think I've actually told like 2 of my own unique stories. So,
all right, man. I am so glad we got connected in this virtual world, because if I am like, seriously, all joking aside, I'm so glad we connected, because I love the way you tell a story. I'm going to take your storytelling secrets and what I learned from here and literally incorporate it into my life. How do I tell a story? Because I know I'm going to get a lot out of it. So thank you so much.
Good. Well, just remember, when you write the book now, I need to be fully credited. And and I'll leave you my address for where you need to send my royalty checks. So
I will definitely do that. But all joking aside, I think you should, because you're so good at storytelling, and some of the stories, that lessons that has in it, if you can incorporate that into a live lesson, you could 100% become a motivational speaker. I am not even kidding.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the TED Talk stuff, and I've had the opportunity to actually stand before groups of people. Like I said, in youth ministry, I've had a chance to stand in front of hundreds of youth and tell different stories and different things, life experience and stuff like that. So I mean, I say I would love to do that. I don't know. That'd be another one of those things that seems like would become very mentally and physically taxing after a while. So we'll see. You might see me pop up on a TED Talk pretty soon. You never know.
Yeah, you never know, because did you throw out in a wildest dream we will be having a podcast?
Well, what I do is I will make sure I give you full credit when I get on my TED Talk episode. I'll make sure that you're fully credited with the actual line credits in the description too. So, since you inspired this possibility, so.
I'm telling you, you are going to be killing it because I know you got me as your fan. I'm going to be listening to you. I am not even kidding because I love the way you present the information. And then if you just continue, like just fine tune the things here and there when like, well, how motivational speakers do, because you got the storytelling part done. Good. And now the next phase is like how you can incorporate a lesson out of it so other people can relate to it. That's all you need, which is a very small, like 10% of it. If you get that, man, I'm telling you, you are gonna kill it.
Oh, good. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, definitely gonna kill it,
Yeah,
man.
like I said, I don't know, man. When the light came on, when I flipped that switch and the self confidence level kind of, people tell me all the time that knew me years ago. They go, man, what's going on with you, man? I used to sit in class, you wouldn't say a word. And now when I walk in a room, I don't walk in a room to take a room over. It just seems to happen. I don't understand how it happens either. It's like a superpower, I guess. I don't know the best way I can describe it. And for some reason, I'm always, when I get put in a situation, other people want to like push me into like the lead spot. And I'm like, no, I want to be a team player. No, man, you need to be in charge of this, whatever. Okay, man, whatever. If it's going to get it done, let's get it done then. So.
And why do you feel like that's the case? They always put you in a lead position because you are a leader, whether you believe it or not. It's one of those things, you either have it or you don't. In just this case, you have it.
It's a superpower. You just don't. I mean, I just said that, so I can go with that. I guess I could be Thor. That'll work. So
yeah, there you go. You can be a Thor. All right, man. First of all, once again, I want to say thank you so much for being here, sharing your stories, and they're amazing, unique, and very vivid. And if people, I want to ask you one question, actually two-part question. If you can give your younger version, like who is 25 years old right now, a advice how to move ahead in life, what would that be?
my 25-year. Okay, so that would have been. I'm 50. That would have been 25 years ago. Okay, at 25, let me set the table for you. At 25, I am. At 25, I've been asked not to come back to one junior college. I finished at a second junior college. I was actually at a senior college, one here within a few miles of here, and just toiling, just hated it, just despised it. It kind of soured me on higher learning as a whole. So I was pretty soured at that point. I also was at 25. I'd been married for 4 years, and we had a small child also. And of course, I'm trying to go to school and working 2 or 3 part-time jobs. So the one thing, I guess, if me today had to tell my 25-year-old self, this would be, don't be so impulsive. Because back then, I was a hustler. When I say hustle, I was doing everything I could to hustling. You know what I'm talking about.
Right.
And if I could just slow down and kind of saw the big picture instead of, as they used to say, I was running toward the light, but I didn't realize it was a train. That was my problem. I didn't see the big picture. So I guess if I had to give myself the advice, I would say, slow down, take a breath, see the big picture. Because I was making decisions at 25 that it's taken me 25 years, almost 25, to actually rectify. Like I put myself in situations, especially like financially and stuff. I made some foolish financial decisions. And you got to realize, when I was 25 years old, and it's not like this now, but they used to just mail you a credit card. Like I don't even think they checked your credit. They just mailed you a credit card and said, call this number and activate it. And for a struggling young married and, in college, my wife's in college finishing up, we got a small child. I got bills to pay, a credit card at that time, man. I thought that was a godsend. I'm like, thank you, Jesus. But little did I know Lucifer sent it. Jesus didn't send it. It was the devil. So like I said, and I put myself in situations that it took me, 15, 20 years to rectify. So if I had to give myself 25-year-old self advice, it'd be slow down, take a breath, see the big picture. Everything does not have to be done today. Have a plan. That's probably my best. I had to give myself that, have a plan. If me and my wife would have sat down and had a plan and stuck to it, I mean, like I said, I've had enough opportunities in from 20 to 50. I'd probably be a millionaire right now if I'd have just slowed down and saw the big picture. So, everybody says everybody makes $1 million in their life, or most folks make $1 million in their lifetime. The problem is they can't hold on to it. So
very, very true. So part two would
that's a
be
very good question, sir. I'm gonna have to write that. I'm gonna have to hit some of my guests with that question. Go ahead.
So part two would be wherever you are right now
Uh-huh.
in your life, all the knowledge that you have, what is going to stop you to get your goals 2 years from now, if anything? Or will you let anything stop you?
I've always from even as a young guy been a goal setter.
Okay.
I don't know that I really have a lot of goals at this point. I mean, they're more singular focused goals, like, trudging on away until like my wife is ready to retire from her job, and I want to be in a position to be able to retire, so we can retire together and actually have us time, because we've had kids in our life literally our entire married life. So that's a goal, be in a position to be ready. I to be honest with you, this podcast, it started off as a hobby. I would love to see it kind of blossom into an actual, feasible like revenue stream. Anything that could take me away to where I'm not having to sell my time to somebody, I'm good with. I would love to be in that situation, and it's feasible. Like I said, I've got to have a few breaks. I've got to have the opportunity. I've got to have the opportunity to be on more shows like your show, for example. I mean, I've just been exposed to the Mark Kumar universe. So,
how you like it? Is it cool?
and I like it. So, yeah, it's like I said, man. When in the world would you have ever believed a guy from Queens, New York, would be talking to a guy from Columbia, Mississippi at 6:30 on Central Time? You're Eastern, so it's later than that for you. So, like I said, I mean, who would have ever thought? I joked with somebody one day. I'll never forget when I must have been about 12 years old. I was a big computer guy back in the day, because that's what nerdy kids that didn't have friends did. They got on their computer. And I'm talking about, when I say computer, I'm talking about I had a computer system you've never heard of before. Like, I started off on a Commodore. And so you have no idea what that is. Commodore was bought up, kind of engulfed by some of the larger companies, Compaqs and stuff like that. But I started off on a Commodore computer, and for some crazy reason, we didn't have the internet back then. The internet was technically there, but it wasn't the internet. It was bulletin boards and stuff like that. That's how you logged in all over the country. And I logged in one night to a bulletin board in Sacramento, California, and they sent this data stream, and I'm sitting there reading it, 11, 12 years old. And, my dad screaming at me, "Get off the phone. You're running up the phone bill." What? "Get off the phone. You've been on the phone for like 20 minutes. Where are you calling? Beijing, China?" "No, Dad, Sacramento, California." Which I wish I'd have called Beijing. It'd have been cheaper. So anyway, I'm sorry, I digress. I'm storytelling again. So anyway, so I get this stream. I print it out on my dot matrix printer. It took about 30 minutes to print it out. And I get to reading it, and it's talking about stocks. I'm 11 years old. The only thing I know about stocks is I see a stock report on the local news every afternoon, for like local stocks. And I spotted a couple of stocks. Intel is one of them, and Microsoft. And at this point, they're both independent stocks. Like, they're not even publicly traded at that point. And I remember trying to convince my dad to, like, "Look, Dad, I know I'm 11 years old and you might think I'm an idiot, but please, man, just can I have $100 to buy some of these stocks? And, he and I look back on it years later, and that $100 investment after they started trading publicly, Intel, because Intel was the one I was after. And I think we figured it up, just a rough estimate, that we would have made something like, it was like $690-something thousand on that $100. So, I mean, I was 11 years old. I don't blame my dad for not giving me $100. I was 11.
Right.
You gonna trust an 11-year-old? Man, I don't. My kids are grown, and I still don't trust some of the stuff they do. So, I understand that. He kind of looked back. We laughed about it. It's $750,000. That's no big deal. For just more poor folks from Mississippi. So,
right.
But yeah, it's just stuff like that. I mean, it's just crazy, man. Just crazy. You've had listen, as you were growing up, you had crazy, insane stories like that.
Oh, absolutely.
Now, you probably didn't pass on Intel, but
Right. I passed on being a brain surgeon.
Oh, wow. Were you actually going to school to do that?
Yeah, I was going to school for that.
Or did you just want to be a brain surgeon?
No, I think my parents. I was going to school for like 2 years, and my parents wanted me to become one. But in the middle of after 2 years or year and a half, I think one or the other, I decided I no longer wanted to be. So switched the plug, and then that was it.
And you probably ended up going into like tech or something. That really ticked them off, didn't it? God, man, you're such a disappointment to your parents. All right, so let me guess. Let's make the story even better. Your parents were physicians also, right?
Nope, not at all.
Oh, I was going to say that would have been like the dagger in the heart if they'd have both been physicians, and then you backed out on it. So.
Then I would have no option but to go, because I would have heard it from both sides.
Yeah, I'm never even a doctor, lawyer, all that stuff never even passed my. It's like no way.
Right.
Yeah.
Man, you got something better planned for you. The good man has something better planned for you. You just don't even know it. I just told you, become a motivational speaker, man. You're gonna be killing it.
That's what I'm saying. Like I said, my goals are more singularly focused now. Right. My priorities are a lot bigger now. I certain priorities that things that I want to make sure get done, like still make sure my family's okay and stuff like that. And like I said, it's goals that I had when I was 15, 18, 20 years old, just pipe dream type stuff. I mean, the funny thing was when I was actually in college, I don't know, 19, 20 years old, I had a crazy dream. I'd like to grow up and be somebody like Donald Trump. And I'm like, Jesus, can you imagine? I'd have an aneurysm and die if I'd have grown up and been Donald Trump. So I told him that dude catches it from everywhere. But back then, I kind of revered him because of, he was a real estate guy, and, he was a Phoenix kind of guy, came up from the ashes and, burned out, bankruptcy, came back from the ashes again. I'm like, man, this dude, he's just, but like I said, not even the so funny is I took oral communications in college, which is, speech class.
Right.
And the teacher gave us two options. We could get up and talk about 5 totally random, off the wall topics that she gave you, or you could put together a theme of speeches that you created. Well, I jumped all over that. I did 5 themed speeches on Donald Trump and his development of his empire. And I'll never forget that my wife, the night that he was elected president, my wife, talking about a memory coming back, because my wife actually was in that same class with me. So she heard this as a witness. I finished my final speech about him by saying, and I kind of gave like a synopsis of all of them, kind of a summary type deal. And I said, and one day it wouldn't shock me to see him, possibly in some form of office, maybe even the presidency. And that's how I finished my series of speeches. Now you got to realize that was in 1991. Yeah, 91. That was long before. You see what I'm saying? So maybe I'm a prophet too. I don't know. So. I don't have any vibe on what the next election looks like, so don't ask
Right.
and don't call Vegas because I don't have a good line on that. So
Cool, man. All right, man. Thank you so much for being here once again. And before we end the show, I want to give you opportunity to let people know how they can get in touch with you or wherever else you want to share.
absolutely. Like I said, guys, my name is William Walley. I've had an absolute blast. I want to thank Mark Kumar. He is one of the coolest podcast hosts that I've ever had an opportunity to engage with. And I hope that you and I get an opportunity to speak again. You know, maybe you come on my show or I come back on this show, whatever. So you guys can reach out to me. I'm on Facebook under William Walley. I'll be the very good-looking, bald-headed guy on the profile picture. You'll see I have all my personal information out there. So you'll see a Columbia, Mississippi under the name. So that'll be me. There's not two William Walleys in the state of Mississippi. So also I have a Facebook page. It's World of Walley. Very easy to search and find. And I'm on Instagram at worldofwalley_official.
All right. Thank you so much.
All right, man. Thank you, brother. I have had an absolute blast.